There is a profound and terrifying arrogance in the way modern humans view the natural world. We build our sprawling concrete cities, we map the globe with satellites, and we convince ourselves that we have conquered the earth. We look at the vast, green expanses of the American wilderness on a map and view them as playgrounds. We pack our expensive hiking gear, we download our GPS trails, and we walk into the tree line expecting a peaceful weekend in nature. But the forest does not care about your technology. The forest does not care about your arrogance. There are millions upon millions of acres of dense, unexplored, primordial wilderness stretching across the United States. From the suffocating, ancient depths of the Appalachian Mountains to the towering, shadowy canopies of the Pacific Northwest. These deep woods are not a playground. They are a completely different world, governed by ancient, unspoken rules. And the people who know this better than anyone else on the planet are the ones whose job it is to walk into the darkness when someone goes missing. Tonight, we are opening the classified, redacted, and deeply terrifying logs of park rangers and search and rescue professionals. These are the stories they do not tell the media. These are the encounters that make grown, heavily armed men hand in their badges and never set foot in the woods again. To understand the sheer scale of the terror, you first have to understand the reality of search and rescue. When a person goes missing in a national park, the official press releases are always sanitized. They talk about changing weather conditions, animal attacks, or a hiker simply losing their way and succumbing to the elements. But the men and women on the ground, the trackers pushing through the dense brush miles off the marked trails, know the horrifying truth. There is a staggering number of disappearances that completely defy every single law of physics, biology, and human logic. Search and rescue veterans have an unspoken vocabulary for the things they find out there. They know that when the tracking dogs suddenly stop, tuck their tails between their legs, and whimper in pure, unadulterated terror, refusing to walk another inch into the forest, the search is over. The dogs are not smelling a bear or a mountain lion. Bears and mountain lions are part of the natural order. The dogs are smelling something entirely unnatural, something that should not exist. Consider the terrifying phenomenon of the impossible distance. A family is hiking on a well-marked, heavily populated trail in the Great Smoky Mountains. A healthy, athletic 4-year-old boy is walking right behind his parents. The father turns around to point out a bird, looking away for no more than 3 seconds. When he looks back, the boy is gone. There is no sound, no scream, no snapping twigs, no rustling bushes, just empty space. The massive search operation begins within the hour. Helicopters with thermal imaging, hundreds of volunteers walking shoulder to shoulder, and elite tracking dogs scour the immediate area. They find absolutely nothing. 7 days later, the boy is found dead. But it is not the tragic death that chills the blood of the search and rescue team. It is where he is found. His body is located 20 miles away from the spot he vanished, at the very top of a sheer, treacherous, 70-degree mountain incline covered in jagged scree and dense briar patches. It is a physical location that an experienced, fully equipped adult rock climber would struggle to reach in 3 days. Yet, this small child, who vanished without a sound, somehow ended up there. But the horror deepens when the rangers examine the scene. The child's shoes are completely missing, yet the bottoms of his soft, bare feet do not have a single scratch, cut, or blister. His clothes are entirely clean, without a single tear from the heavy briar patches that surround the cliff. And most terrifying of all, his brightly colored jacket has been removed, meticulously folded into a perfect, neat square, and placed carefully on a rock 50 feet away from the body. The official coroner report will say death by exposure to the elements. But every single ranger who stood on that impossible peak knows the dark, unspeakable truth. That child did not walk 20 miles up a sheer cliff face in bare feet without a scratch. Something took him. Something incredibly fast, incredibly quiet, and possessing a strength that we cannot even begin to comprehend. Something that plays with human beings like fragile, disposable toys. This predatory intelligence, hidden deep within the trees, leads us to the most chilling encounters reported by veteran rangers. The phenomenon of the mimic. Imagine you are a seasoned park ranger. It is late October. You are doing a routine boundary patrol deep in the backcountry of a massive Oregon forest. The sun has already dipped behind the towering pines, plunging the woods into a heavy, suffocating twilight. You are completely alone, 15 miles from the nearest road, armed only with your radio and your sidearm. The woods are quiet, and then you hear it. A voice calling out from the deep brush, maybe 100 yards away. It is a woman's voice. She is crying for help. Your training immediately kicks in. You unclip your radio, shine your heavy flashlight into the dark trees, and begin walking toward the sound, calling out that you are a ranger and you are there to help. But as you push through the dense, wet ferns, you start to realize something is fundamentally, horrifyingly wrong with the voice. It is crying for help, yes, but the cadence is completely unnatural. The pitch never changes. The pauses between the words are exactly the same length every single time. It sounds like an audio file being played on a loop. Help me. I am hurt. Please help me. It lacks all the desperate, chaotic emotion of a real human being in pain. And then the voice abruptly changes location. 1 second, it is directly in front of you, and in the blink of an eye, the exact same voice, at the exact same volume, comes from high up in the canopy, 70 feet off the ground, directly above your head. You freeze. The blood in your veins turns to ice. You slowly point your flashlight up into the massive, twisting branches of the ancient trees. The beam of light cuts through the darkness, illuminating nothing but pine needles and shadows. And then the voice changes again. This time, it does not say, "Help me." This time, from the top of the pitch-black canopy, it calls out your specific first name. It uses the exact voice of your wife. The tone is sweet, conversational, completely out of place in the terrifying darkness of the deep woods. It is trying to coax you further off the trail. It wants you to walk deeper into the dark, where your radio signal will not reach. The veteran rangers know exactly what to do in this situation. They do not answer back. They do not shine their lights. They slowly, silently back away, keeping their eyes locked on the tree line until they are back on the marked path. And then they walk as fast as humanly possible back to their vehicle. They know that whatever is up there in the trees is incredibly old, incredibly hungry, and it has learned how to perfectly mimic its prey to draw them into the jaws of the forest. The psychological terror of these deep wilderness zones is not just limited to voices in the dark. There is a deeply unnatural, almost glitching reality that exists in the areas completely untouched by human civilization. Search and rescue officers who have ventured 50 or 60 miles deep into the roadless wilderness often report stumbling across things that shatter their understanding of reality. One of the most fiercely guarded, unspoken rules among veteran trackers in the Appalachian Mountains is the rule regarding the stairs. You will not find this in any official training manual. But if you are a rookie heading out into the deep woods with a veteran, they will eventually pull you aside and give you a very stern, deadly, serious warning. They will tell you that if you are walking through the deep woods, miles away from any road, cabin, or foundation, and you suddenly see a perfectly constructed staircase standing alone in the middle of the forest, you must never look directly at it. You must never approach it, and you absolutely must never touch it. These are not the rotting remains of old pioneer homes. These are immaculate, perfectly clean staircases. Some rangers have reported finding beautiful, spiraling Victorian staircases carved from expensive mahogany, sitting perfectly level on the uneven forest floor. Others have reported finding modern, carpeted stairs entirely free of dirt, pine needles, or debris, despite being completely exposed to the harsh elements of the deep woods. They lead up to absolutely nothing but empty air. When a tracker gets too close to these isolated structures, they describe a sudden, crushing feeling of extreme dread, as if the air pressure has violently dropped. All the natural sounds of the forest, The birds, the wind, the insects completely cease. It is a dead, vacuum-sealed silence. Those who have foolishly walked up a few steps report feeling an intense, burning sensation of being watched from directly above them by something massive and invisible, hovering in the empty air. The veterans know that these stairs are not physical objects. They are tears in the fabric of the woods. They are bait. And the people who climb to the top step are the ones who end up in the missing persons files, never to be seen again. But what happens when the things in the deep woods stop hiding and actively start hunting the people meant to protect the parks? The isolated fire watchtowers stationed at the highest peaks of the national forests are prime targets for the things that roam the night. Imagine being assigned to a fire watchtower in the deep expanse of the Bitterroot National Forest. You are suspended 60 feet in the air inside a small, glass-enclosed cabin. Your only connection to the outside world is a radio that relies on weather-dependent frequencies. It is 2 in the morning. A heavy, thick fog has rolled in, completely obscuring the ground below. You are reading a book by the light of a small lantern, enjoying the extreme isolation. Suddenly, the heavy, metallic security gate at the very bottom of the tower violently rattles. It is not the wind. It is the distinct sound of heavy metal being violently shaken by 2 massive hands. You grab your high-powered spotlight and step out onto the metal catwalk. You shine the blinding beam down into the swirling fog. The rattling stops instantly. You sweep the light across the base of the tower. There is no bear. There is no lost hiker. Just the impenetrable white mist. You convince yourself it was a structural creak caused by the dropping temperature. You go back inside. 10 minutes later, you hear a sound that makes your heart stop completely. It is the distinct, heavy thud of a footstep on the wooden stairs leading up to your cabin. Thud. Pause. Thud. Something is slowly, methodically walking up the 60-foot staircase in the pitch-black night. You grab your radio and whisper frantically to the base station, but all you get back is a wall of aggressive static. The entity is blocking the signal. You stand in the center of the glass room, clutching a heavy rifle, watching the top of the stairwell. The footsteps stop just below the trapdoor. The silence is agonizing. You wait for the trapdoor to burst open. Instead, you hear a sickening, wet sound. The sound of something with long, sharp claws effortlessly scaling the heavy wooden beams on the outside of the tower. It is crawling up the exterior structure like a massive, unnatural insect. Suddenly, a pale, elongated, completely hairless hand slams against the glass window directly behind you. You spin around, raising the rifle. Staring back at you through the glass is a face that defies all human comprehension. It is roughly the shape of a human skull, stretched tight with translucent, sickly gray skin. But the eyes are massive, black voids completely devoid of any light or emotion. The jaw hangs unnaturally low, revealing rows of jagged, translucent teeth. It does not attack the glass. It simply stares at you with a cold, ancient hatred. It feeds on your absolute, paralyzing terror. And then, in the blink of an eye, it drops backward into the foggy abyss, completely silent. You spend the next 5 hours until dawn, sitting in the corner, rifle aimed at the door, completely broken by the realization that you are sitting in a glass jar in the middle of a monster's feeding ground. These terrifying encounters are heavily suppressed by the park services. They want the public to keep buying annual passes. They want families to keep renting out the camping spots. They rely on the illusion of a sanitized, perfectly safe nature experience. But the rangers who patrol the deep sectors know that the trail markers are not there just to keep you from getting lost. The trail markers are a thin, fragile boundary line. They are an ancient treaty. As long as you stay on the path, as long as you make noise, as long as you leave before the sun goes down, the things in the deep woods will mostly leave you alone. They will watch you from the shadows, but they will let you pass. But the moment you decide to be adventurous, the moment you step off that marked path and walk into the unbroken tree line, you cross the boundary. You enter a domain that is older than human language. You become prey. The sudden, unnatural silence of the forest is not peaceful. It is the woods holding its breath because the apex predator has arrived. The strange, colorful objects you see out of the corner of your eye are not trash left by other hikers. They are lures. The distant, perfectly clear voice of your loved one calling your name from the trees is a death sentence. We are strangers in the deep woods. We are fragile, slow, and completely blind in the dark. So, the next time you decide to take a weekend trip to a sprawling national park, look at the rangers at the entrance gate. Look closely at the older ones. Look at the deep, permanent exhaustion in their eyes. They are the gatekeepers. When you set up your tent and the darkness finally falls over the forest, zipping you inside a thin piece of nylon, listen very closely. If you hear the woods suddenly go completely, violently silent, if the crickets stop, if the wind dies down, if you hear the heavy, dragging footsteps circling your campsite just beyond the reach of the dying firelight, do not unzip your tent. Do not turn on your flashlight. Do not call out to see who is there. Close your eyes tightly. Pray for the morning sun. And hope that whatever is hunting in the deep woods tonight finds something else to take. Because if it decides it wants you, the only thing the search and rescue teams will find is a perfectly folded jacket on a rock. miles away, in a place where no human could ever possibly climb.